South Carolina's real estate industry does not want you to see this video because the 12 towns I'm about to show you make every overpriced Charleston condo and every Hilton Head golf villa look like a financial mistake. See, there's a version of South Carolina retirement that nobody talks about. The version where your home costs less than a new truck, your neighbors actually know your name, and you're not paying $4,000 a year in insurance just to live near a beach you visit twice. I spent months driving through the parts of South Carolina that don't make it onto the postcards, and what I found genuinely surprised me. I found a topiary garden that one man carved out of trash pile shrubs, a mountain town that ages blue cheese inside an abandoned railroad tunnel, the birthplace of the man who helped invent modern jazz, and a place where they leave the downtown streets unpaved on purpose so the horses don't slip. If any of that sounds better than a $2,000 HOA and a view of your neighbor's screened-in lanai, hit that subscribe button right now because we are counting down 12 South Carolina towns the retirement industry hopes you never discover. And one thing to keep in the back of your mind the whole way down this list: South Carolina does not tax a single dollar of your Social Security. Once you turn 65, the state also lets you deduct up to $15,000 of your other retirement income, and property taxes here are some of the lowest in the entire country. That changes the math on every single town you're about to see. Let's count it down. Number 12, Bishopville. When I first drove into Bishopville, I pulled over for a garden, and I want you to know I am not a garden person. But you cannot drive past Pearl Fryer's topiary garden and not stop. A self-taught man with no training turned 3 acres of discarded, half-dead nursery shrubs into swirling green sculptures that now draw visitors from around the world. Bishopville sits in Lee County in the flat middle of the state with a population of about 3,000 people. And here's the number that matters. The typical home value here is around $121,000. That is not a typo. That is the cheapest town on this entire list, and it actually dropped about 11% over the past year, which means a patient buyer has real leverage. You could buy a house outright here for what a down payment costs in Charleston. This is also the home of the South Carolina Cotton Museum, which proudly displays the world's largest boll weevil, and the surrounding swamp gave us the legend of the lizard man of Scape Ore Swamp, a story that once had a genuine reward posted for its capture. On a fixed Social Security check, your money stretches further here than almost anywhere in America. Think about the math for a second. The average Social Security retirement check runs a little under $2,000 a month. In a town where a house can be bought outright and property taxes are pennies, that check stops being a survival budget and starts being an actual life with money left over. Lee County is one of the more rural, lower-income parts of the state, so you are trading big box convenience for that price. The honest caveat is healthcare. There is no full hospital in town. The nearest emergency room is Prisma Health Tuomi Hospital in Sumter, about 25 miles west, and at retirement age, that drive is something you plan around, not ignore. Number 11, Hartsville. Hartsville caught me off guard because it does not feel like an accident. Most small southern towns grew up around a railroad crossing. Hartsville was deliberately built as a planned town, and you can feel that intention when you walk the streets. It sits in Darlington County, about an hour and a half from Columbia, with roughly 7,400 residents. The typical home runs around $230,000, which is well below the national average, and you get a lot of house for it. What makes Hartsville punch above its weight is that it is home to Coker University, a small private college that pumps concerts, lectures, and art shows into a town this size. Plus, it's the headquarters of Sonoco, a Fortune 500 packaging company that has kept the local economy steady for over a century. For a retiree, that college is quietly a big deal. It means live music, continuing education classes, and a walkable green campus you can stroll for free. There is also Kalmia Gardens, a 30-acre botanical garden built on an old bluff that locals treat like a backyard. And healthcare is genuinely handled here. Carolina Pines Regional Medical Center sits right on the edge of town, a full hospital with over 100 beds and its own emergency and trauma unit. That combination of a real hospital, a real college, and homes in the low 200s is rare. Cost of living here runs comfortably below the national average, and a house that would list for $500,000 or $600,000 near the coast sells for well under half that in Hartsville. The trade-off is simply distance. If you need a major specialist, you're likely driving toward Florence or Columbia, but for day-to-day life, Hartsville is remarkably self-contained. Number 10, Walhalla. When I first drove up into Walhalla, my ears actually popped, and that tells you something about where you are. This is a town sitting at over 1,000 feet of elevation, tucked into the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in Oconee County, up in the far northwestern corner of the state, near where South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina all meet. Population is about 4,000. The typical home here is around $236,000, and unlike some towns on this list, values are actually rising, up about 5% last year because people are discovering the mountains. Walhalla was founded by German settlers, and the town still throws a full Oktoberfest every October with the beer, the music, and the dancing. But my favorite thing here is the Stump House Tunnel, an unfinished railroad tunnel carved into the mountain back in the 1850s. It never got finished, and for years Clemson University used it to age blue cheese because the temperature inside stays perfect year-round. You can walk right into it. For a retiree who wants cooler summers, real seasons, and hiking trails and waterfalls 20 minutes from the front porch, this is the spot. There's a reason values are climbing here while flatter towns stay flat. Being up in the foothills means the brutal low country humidity eases off a few degrees, and you are minutes from Oconee Station, Issaquena Falls, and the edge of the Sumter National Forest. Prisma Health Oconee Memorial Hospital is only about 8 miles away in Seneca, so healthcare is close. The honest caveat is the terrain. These are winding mountain roads, the driveways can be steep, and if hills and grades are hard on your knees or your car, walk the specific street before you fall in love with the view. It's also worth knowing that for a big specialist or a major procedure, Greenville is your destination, roughly an hour of mountain driving away, which is fine for planned appointments but something to weigh if quick access to advanced care is a priority for you. Number 9, York. York surprised me because it feels like a movie set, and it turns out film crews agree. They call it the White Rose City, and its downtown historic district covers 340 acres with more than 180 historic structures, one of the largest districts of its kind in the Carolinas. It sits in York County, and here is the catch that also makes it valuable. It is only about 27 miles southwest of Charlotte, North Carolina. That proximity to a major city is a double-edged sword. It pushes the typical home value up to around $350,000, the most expensive town on this list. But it also means you get big city hospitals, an international airport, and major league sports all within a comfortable drive while paying South Carolina's lower taxes and living on a quiet, tree-lined street. For a retiree with a little more in the bank who still wants a small-town front porch without being cut off from the world, that is a genuine sweet spot. Here's the part that makes York work for a retiree. You can sell a modest house in the Charlotte suburbs, cross the state line into York, buy something comparable, and pocket the difference while your tax bill drops. South Carolina doesn't touch your Social Security, and property taxes on a primary home here are a fraction of what North Carolina charges next door. Healthcare is handled by Piedmont Medical Center over in Rock Hill, about 15 miles away. The honest caveat is right there in the price. York is not the bargain that Bishopville is, and at around $350,000, it's nearly triple the price. Because Charlotte keeps growing, both home values and traffic on the York to Charlotte corridor are climbing, and values here actually dipped slightly last year, so timing your purchase matters. If you buy here, you're partly betting on that Charlotte spillover continuing, which so far it has, but you're paying a premium up front for that big city access. Number 8, Abbeville. Abbeville hit me the moment I reached the town square because it is built around a genuine 19th century opera house that still puts on shows. The Abbeville Opera House opened in 1908, and instead of being torn down like most of them were, this one is still lit up and running live theater. The town sits in Abbeville County in the western part of the state with a population under 5,000, and the typical home value is around $216,000, comfortably below the national average. Abbeville carries a heavy nickname. It is called the birthplace and the deathbed of the Confederacy because the first organized secession meeting was held here and one of the last Confederate war councils happened here too. Whatever you make of that history, it means the town takes its past seriously and has preserved a downtown that most places would kill for. For a retiree, the draw is simple. A walkable brick square, live music and theater within walking distance, and a house you can actually afford. At around $216,000 for a typical home, and with property taxes as low as they are, a couple bringing in 2 Social Security checks plus even a small pension can live here without touching their savings most months. Abbeville Area Medical Center is right in town, which for a place this small is a real advantage. The caveat is that this is genuinely rural. For a major specialist or a serious procedure, you're driving to Greenville or Greenwood, and the nearest big box shopping is a haul. If your idea of retirement includes constant errands and options, this quiet might feel too quiet. If you're enjoying this countdown and you haven't subscribed yet, now would be a great time. I cover towns like these every single week, and the next several entries are even better than what you've seen so far. Number 7. Cheraw. Cheraw earned its nickname honestly. They call it the prettiest town in Dixie, and standing on its village green surrounded by pre-Civil War homes, I wasn't going to argue. It sits up in the northeastern corner in Chesterfield County, about an hour and a half from Columbia, with a population around 5,000. The typical home here runs about $200,000, which for the amount of history and charm you get is a genuine steal. But here's the fact that makes Cheraw unforgettable. This tiny town is the birthplace of Dizzy Gillespie, the legendary trumpet player who helped invent bebop and changed American music forever. There's a statue of him downtown and a jazz festival every year in his honor. Cheraw also gave South Carolina its first state park. Cheraw State Park was one of the very first parks in the country built by the Civilian Conservation Corps back in the 1930s, and it's still one of the largest of its kind in the state, with a golf course, a lake, and cabins. For a retiree, that means fishing, golf, and quiet water minutes from home, and a set of pre-revolutionary homes that give the whole town a museum-quality feel for the price of a starter house. At roughly $200,000 for a typical home, Cheraw is one of the best charm per dollar deals in the state. And healthcare is handled right in town by McLeod Health Cheraw, a real hospital, which is rare for a town this small and this affordable. The honest caveat is location. Cheraw is genuinely out in the country, far from any big metro, so if you crave the buzz of a city, this corner of the state will feel remote. Number 6. Newberry. Newberry is another opera house town, and I'm starting to think the small towns of South Carolina cornered the market on them. The Newberry Opera House dates back to 1882, and after a full restoration, it now books real touring acts, comedians, and concerts that pull people in from all over the region. Newberry sits in Newberry County, about 43 miles northwest of Columbia, with a population of around 10,700, making it one of the larger towns on this list. The typical home value here sits in the mid-200,000s, still well under the national average. This town also throws its own Oktoberfest, leaning into its German heritage, and the historic downtown around the Opera House is genuinely charming and walkable. For a retiree, Newberry hits a nice middle ground. It's big enough to have real amenities and a steady cultural calendar, but small enough that it still feels like a community where people wave. The Opera House alone books well over 100 shows a year, which is more live entertainment than most towns triple this size ever see, and you can walk to it from a home that costs a fraction of a Charleston condo. Healthcare is covered by Newberry County Memorial Hospital right in town, so you're not driving far for the everyday stuff. The honest caveat is that for anything major or specialized, Columbia is your destination, about 45 minutes down the road. But being 45 minutes from a state capital with major medical centers while paying small town prices and taxes is exactly the kind of trade a lot of retirees are looking for. And with Lake Murray and its beaches, boat ramps, and fishing sitting between Newberry and Columbia, you get a big recreational lake without paying the lakefront premium to live on it. Number 5. Edgefield. Edgefield is small, and I mean small, only about 2,300 people, but it has more stories per square foot than towns 10 times its size. It sits in Edgefield County, about 26 miles north of Augusta, Georgia. The typical home value here is around $221,000. Now here's the town's calling card. Edgefield is nicknamed the home of 10 governors because an astonishing 10 South Carolina governors came from this one tiny county. It's also the national headquarters of the National Wild Turkey Federation, which means, yes, there's a giant wild turkey statue you'll want a photo with. And it sits at the heart of the old Edgefield pottery tradition, the alkaline glazed stoneware made famous by David Drake, an enslaved potter who signed and inscribed his own work at a time when that was forbidden. Those pots now sell for six figures at auction, one of them famously topped $1.5 million, which is a strange thing to think about while standing in a town where a lovely old house goes for $200,000. For a retiree, Edgefield offers a genuinely storied, walkable square and prices that let you buy in comfortably, with Augusta's shopping, dining, and major hospitals only about a half hour south when you want the big city stuff. The honest caveat is healthcare access. The in-town medical center is small, so for a hospital with a full emergency room, you're looking at Aiken Regional Medical Centers roughly 26 miles away, or the larger hospitals in Augusta. For serious care, plan on that drive. Number 4, Pendleton. Pendleton is a college town that isn't quite a college town, and that's exactly its charm. It sits in Anderson County, right between Clemson University and the city of Anderson, with a population of about 3,500. Because it's so close to Clemson, it borrows all that energy, the restaurants, the game days, the culture, without being swallowed by it. Pendleton is built around one of the largest historic districts in the state, anchored by Farmers Hall on the town green, one of the oldest buildings of its kind in continuous use in the country. Now, the numbers here run higher than most of this list. The recent median sale price is around $281,000 because Clemson's popularity lifts everything nearby, but you're paying for genuine access. Lake Hartwell is right there for boating and fishing, Clemson's cultural events are open to the public, and Greenville is less than an hour away. Healthcare is solid, with Ann Med's full medical center about 14 miles down the road in Anderson, and Greenville's major hospital systems within an hour if you need them. For an active retiree who wants a walkable village, a lake, and a big university's worth of things to do nearby, Pendleton delivers. Auditing a college class, catching a lecture, using the library, all of that is on the table when a major university is 15 minutes away, and it keeps your mind as busy as your calendar. The honest caveat is twofold. It costs more, and on a Clemson football Saturday, the traffic in this whole area is something you'll want to plan your errands around. If you've made it this far, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who are trying to figure out where to retire in South Carolina without going broke. Number 3, Seneca. Seneca is where the water starts, and that changes everything. It sits in Oconee County, right next to Lake Keowee, one of the cleanest, clearest reservoirs in the state, with water so blue it looks staged. The population is around 9,000, and the historic downtown, known as Ram Cat Alley, is a genuinely fun strip of shops, restaurants, and live music that got its odd name from the alley cats that once prowled it. The typical home value here is around $230,000, though anything with actual lake frontage climbs well above that. For a retiree, Seneca is a lifestyle pick. You've got boating, fishing, and lakeside sunsets, the Blue Ridge foothills right behind you, and Clemson just 15 minutes away for football and culture. Lake Keowee is spring-fed and famously clear because it sits at the base of the mountains, and Duke Energy keeps the shoreline carefully managed, which is part of why the water stays that blue. And healthcare here is a real strength. Prisma Health Oconee Memorial Hospital is right in town, so you're not gambling on distance. This is the kind of place where a retired couple can trade a cramped, expensive coastal condo and the $4,000 wind and flood insurance bill that comes with it for a house near clear mountain water and come out ahead every single month. The honest caveat is that the lake dream isn't free. True waterfront property is genuinely expensive, and summer weekends bring tourists and boat traffic, but you can live a few minutes from that water for a fraction of the cost and still be swimming by noon. Number 2, Camden. Camden feels older than it is allowed to feel, and that is because it is the oldest inland town in the entire state, laid out back in the 1730s. It sits in Kershaw County, only about 32 miles from Columbia, with a population under 8,000. The typical home value is around $280,000, and for that you get wide, tree-canopied streets and grand old homes that look like a film set. But Camden's real identity is horses. This is the self-proclaimed steeplechase capital of the world, home to the Carolina Cup, a steeplechase race run every spring since 1930 that draws over 70,000 people to a single afternoon. There's even a national steeplechase museum in town. Camden was also the site of a major Revolutionary War battle, so the history runs deep. On Carolina Cup weekend, the whole town dresses up and the infield turns into one enormous garden party, and the rest of the year it settles back into a quiet, elegant southern town. For a retiree, this is a rare combination of genuine sophistication, an easy drive to a state capital, and a real hospital right in town, MUSC Health Kershaw Medical Center. Add in South Carolina's low property taxes and the fact that your Social Security isn't taxed here, plus that $15,000 retirement income deduction at 65, and the monthly math gets very friendly. The honest caveat is water. Parts of the area sit low near the watery river, and Camden has seen serious flooding before, so you'll want to check the flood map for any specific property and factor in flood insurance before you sign. Number 1. Aiken. When I first drove into Aiken and saw that they leave some of the downtown streets deliberately unpaved, I thought it was neglect. It isn't. They keep those dirt lanes for the horses, and that one detail tells you everything about why Aiken tops this list. This is horse country, the winter home of thoroughbred training for over a century, with its own triple crown of races every spring. It sits in Aiken County near the Georgia line with a population around 30,000, big enough to have everything you need and small enough to still feel like a town. The typical home value is around $280,000, and values have been climbing steadily, up over 3% last year because people keep discovering it. What sets Aiken apart is Hitchcock Woods, a 2,000-acre urban forest right inside the city, one of the largest in the country, laced with trails you can walk or ride for free. Downtown is full of restaurants, galleries, and a genuine winter cultural season left over from the wealthy Northerners who once made this their escape and called themselves the Winter Colony. There's polo, most weekends in season, a symphony, and a mild climate that lets you garden nearly year-round. Healthcare is handled by Aiken Regional Medical Centers right in town. And here is where South Carolina's tax setup really pays off. Your Social Security is fully exempt. At 65, you deduct up to $15,000 more of retirement income, and the property taxes on that $200,000 home are a fraction of what you'd pay up north. The honest caveat is that Aiken sits near the Savannah River site, the old nuclear complex, and the summers here are genuinely hot and humid, the kind of July afternoons that keep you indoors by 2 o'clock. But for a town with a real hospital, a 2,000-acre forest, this much culture and green space, and homes near 280,000 instead of the 700 or 800 you'd pay for the same life on the coast, Aiken earns the top spot. If you take one town off this list and go visit it, make it this one. The 12 towns on this list aren't famous. They're not on the billboards, and they'll never run a Super Bowl ad, but every single one of them offers something the big South Carolina cities lost a long time ago. Character, affordability, a real hospital nearby, and a front porch where a neighbor might actually sit down and talk to you. And with a state that doesn't tax your Social Security, gives you a $15,000 deduction at 65, and keeps property taxes low, your fixed income finally gets room to breathe. If this video helped you rethink where you might retire in South Carolina, subscribe to the channel. I drop videos like this every week covering the best small towns, the cheapest places to live, and the real estate tips the industry doesn't put in the brochure. Now do me one favor, drop a comment and tell me which one of these 12 towns you would actually pack up and move to. I read them all. I'll see you in the next one.